the Nike Streakfly and the Adidas Adios 8. Two modern racing flats, but which is the right one for you? You're probably here because you own a Nike Streakfly and you fall into one of two camps. You either love the shoe and spent a ton of time in it and you're curious where the Adios 8 fits in relationship to the Streakfly, or you bought the Streakfly and it wasn't what you expected because you expected something more like a Vaporfly, at least with sort of the pop of a carbon plate or a little bit more stiffness in it, and you found the Streakfly too soft. What's really interesting about both these shoes is that they really are Nike and Adidas very much modernizing the traditional racing flat. They're using their technologies, they're using sort of a lot of the R&D that they've done on their super shoes, and they're trickling it back into a very traditional racing flat, which honestly in 2023 is kind of a breath of fresh air, having a performance shoe that has all of their current technology but isn't a high stack super shoe. So I applaud both Nike and Adidas for really putting a lot of R&D into both these shoes, and I hope that they continue because they are creating great products. The best place to start to really look at these two shoes is, let's look at the specs. And on paper, these shoes seem a lot farther apart than they actually are. So if we start with the Nike Streakfly, what we have here is 32 mil of foam in the heel, 26 mil in the forefoot with a 6 mil drop. And now this is all pure ZoomX foam. There is nothing in this midsole except for a Pebax shank, very much in the midfoot, but that is literally just in the midfoot. It's very different from the shank that you're seeing in the new Adios 8. Now, one of the things that sets the Streakfly apart is just how lightweight it is. At 6 ounces or 170 grams, it is a ridiculously lightweight shoe, and it's one of the kind of things that's so great about running in the Streakfly is that it is so light. But it also is one of the problems with the Streakfly is because it is so lightweight, it is very much not durable. So like I said, it's an ultra lightweight racing flat. It's got a very traditional geometry to it, very similar in that manner to the Adios 8. Speaking of the Adios 8, again, we have a 28 mil heel, 20 in the forefoot, 8 mil drop. So a little less foam, but a little bit more drop. But to be honest, the Streakfly is so soft, ZoomX is so soft that once you're in the shoe, putting all your weight on it, standing on it on the ground, the stack height and the drop of the Streakfly is probably honestly very similar to what's in the Adios 8 because you are sinking into the foam so much. So let's talk about the uppers of these shoes, and let's start with the Streakfly. Now, I actually really love this upper. I actually think this is a great upper. It isn't without problems because I know it does stretch. There's a lot of people that have put a lot of miles into the shoe where the upper is stretching. It is already very roomy in the forefoot and particularly in this area at the bottom of the eyelet chain. And this area does stretch out, so you get a very kind of vague fit. But overall, for my foot, this shoes fit really well, and I actually really like the upper. That being said, I do think Nike can really come back and put a lot more redesign and revisions into this upper, bring it in line with the great uppers that we see in the Vaporfly 3 or even the Alphafly 2. I actually have a whole video about where I think Nike needs to go with the Streakfly 2. Card on the screen, link in the description. So if you want to go get my feelings on that, go check that video out. But I do think one of the things that will eventually evolve in the Streakfly is this upper. But for the sake of this shoe, I think this upper fits very well. It actually is quite easy to get your foot in, get a decent lockdown, though it is a little finicky. Maybe not so much as a Vaporfly, but it definitely takes a little adjustment to get the tongue in the right place. And again, there is a lot of generous fit in this upper, especially in the toe box and right below the eyelet chain. But again, I think that adds to the versatility of the shoe. And it's interesting to see both Nike and Adidas putting a more generous upper on these sort of modern racing flats, because I think they know that people aren't necessarily going to race in these, though you can race in them, but that's not going to be the primary use. These are going to be training devices. And I think they're putting these more roomy uppers on these shoes to actually increase the versatility for the shoe, but also make sure more runners can fit in these shoes. Now, moving to the Adios 8. This upper, I actually think, is the better upper of the two. I think this is Adidas' Cellular Mesh material. This is the same material that you see in the Takumi Sen 9 and the Adios Pro 3. But this upper, unlike both those shoes, is just much cleaner, and I think it fits a little bit better. Like the Streakfly, it does have a very generous forefoot, and it does have a wider forefoot. Unlike the Streakfly, around the bottom of the eyelet chain, there isn't sort of a lot of extra material in here, which is a good thing. The heel is narrower in this shoe compared to the Streakfly, but the midfoot is a little bit narrower as well. But again, the lockdown in the shoe, once you get your foot into the shoe, the great tongue that's in this with the band that you can see here. Overall, I think this upper fits and conforms to the foot much better. This shoe fit me very true to size, and then the Streakfly actually fits me very true to size, if not maybe a tiny bit longer. But neither one of these shoes is a race fit upper. These are definitely more generous uppers that will work better for training. These are not a hardcore race fit upper like the Vaporweave upper that was on the original Next Percent, or even the really sort of small and narrow upper that's on the Takumi Sen 9. Like my comparison video of the Takumi Sen 9 to the Adios 8, I also did this same workout in the Streakfly. The biggest kind of surprise to me between the Adios 8 and the Streakfly in this workout was that there really was no difference. If you look at these numbers, they are essentially the same. Plus or minus a second or two here, but fundamentally these are very much the same, which kind of surprises me, to be honest, because the Adios 8 is a much stiffer shoe. The shank that's in that shoe, particularly in the forefoot, does not run like a carbon shank or carbon rods in the Takumi Sen, but it does give you a little bit more pop on toe off compared to what's in the Streakfly. But on the Streakfly, you are getting the bounce of Zoom X. So that looks like it's actually compensating for some of the firmness or pop of that shank from the Adios 8. So what's the verdict here? Now, this one isn't as cut and dry to me as the Takumi Sen versus the Adios 8. If you've watched any content on this channel, you know I love this shoe. And I adore this shoe. It's more than love. I think this is one of the best shoes that Nike has made in 10 years, maybe more. I have enjoyed every mile in this shoe, and I have run everything in this shoe from easy to long, meaning half marathon distance. I do almost all of my workouts in this shoe, and to me, this is the ultimate hill rep shoe. It is a great shoe. It is not a racing shoe, though, and I think that's what is holding this shoe back a little bit, because Nike has labeled this a racing shoe. It is a Streakfly. It's got the Fly name in it, which designates a racing shoe for Nike. Now, I think because Nike has billed this as a racing shoe, it is what is, like I said, holding it back a little bit, because it's now ultra lightweight at 6 ounces, which has made the durability of it much less. And I think it has pigeonholed it into a race shoe competing against something like a Vaporfly, which it's just not. The Vaporfly is just going to be faster in any distance you would pull this out in. The one place I do find this faster than the Vaporfly is for 200s, 400s, either on the road or on the track, especially on the track. I actually love running this shoe on the track. I like a soft shoe on a soft track. It just works out really well. So I think with the evolution of the shoe, Nike can add some weight back to it and add some durability into it, which is really, I think, where Adidas is coming from with the Adios 8. I talked about in my first impression review of the shoe that this shoe feels very heavy towards the front, and I think a lot of that is thanks to this big piece of rubber. Now, this big piece of rubber, I think, is actually one of the great things about this shoe, because I think it gives you a amazing forefoot landing. I mean, this is such a good shoe to land midfoot, forefoot. Heel striking, I said, I don't think it's the best for heel strikers, but when you're in your midfoot or forefoot, this huge contact patch of rubber, continental rubber too, is amazing. It is adding some weight to the shoe, but I think it's actually adding a lot of feel and some dampening that's kind of smoothing out the initial foot strike of this shoe. But the biggest thing that I think it's going to do for this shoe, which is really the biggest selling point, or really the point of differentiation for me between these two shoes, is that this big piece of rubber adds a ton of durability to this shoe. And by doing that, you get a ton of versatility to this shoe. So my sort of way of looking at a running shoe, particularly one that I would want for maybe easy running, is if I'm going away for the weekend and I'm just going to go in a new city, I'm going to go run, would I throw this in my bag as my only pair of running shoes for the weekend? And I can honestly say, and I've actually run into this situation a few times since I've owned this shoe, I would never pick this as my only running shoe because it is so fragile. It is so kind of delicate, to be fair. And unless I know that I'm going to be running on really good pavement, I don't really want to be running in this shoe. I've done some dirt paths. I've done some very tightly packed gravel. This shoe will do that, but I want to know what I'm getting into. I just don't want to like run into something and like find that it's going to tear this shoe apart. So I would never pick this as sort of that one shoe I'd throw in my bag for, just going for runs over a long weekend. I would pick this shoe though. And I think that speaks a lot to the versatility of this shoe and the sort of durability I would expect from this shoe. Now, I have thousands of miles in the Streakfly this is my fourth pair, but I only get maybe 150 to 200 miles in a pair, if that. Now, I'm actually okay with that, but I know a lot of people won't be and aren't okay with that. That's not enough for a shoe, even at this price range, but really any shoe. I think this shoe is going to go much, much further. It's going to have a lot more durability. You're going to get a lot more value for the investment into this shoe. That being said, from a running perspective, from a performance perspective, as you saw in the data, there isn't much difference between these two. This is a stiffer shoe that's got the mechanical, torsion shank in there that's, getting you a firmer, kind of more leveraged toe off. This is Zoom X that's giving you that bounce on toe off. The bottom line here, and I'm trying not to take the escape route here of not picking one, but I think if you like more minimal shoes, you come from a racing flat background, I think you need to own both of these because I think they're very complementary. This is a firmer, more durable shoe. This is a lighter, bouncier shoe. If you go from this to this, there's a huge difference and they feel really amazing. I think, again, if you like more minimal shoes or come from racing flats, you have to buy both of these. I think you need to buy both of these because you're going to enjoy both of these because they do similar things in very different ways, and it's kind of amazing to go back and forth between them and see how Nike and Adidas are solving the same problem. But if I had to pick one, and I think it's maybe be a little bit obvious which one it's going to be, I'm going to go with the Adios 8. And it's not because of running, it's because of durability. I prefer running in the Streakfly, but this one is really close. But this one is much more durable, so I can do a lot more in this shoe and I can worry a lot less about this shoe. And I value that. But like I said, I really think you want to have both of these shoes. I think they're both outstanding. I think they're both really interesting. And honestly, in 2023, in the era of high stack super shoes, both of these shoes are really refreshing. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you're new here, subscribe. You'll see more content like this pop up in your feed. Otherwise, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow and more people see this content, which I'm always appreciative of. And with that, I will catch you in the next one.